Happy Thanksgiving, 977. But it's getting cold, and this is the warmest day it's going to be the night before Thanksgiving, so I figured let's get her fired up, get her in the shop. In between eating turkey, we'll start tearing her apart. So if you guys remember, the problem with this tractor is it's putting oil into the coolant, but not coolant into the oil. So I really believe it's an oil cooler issue because the oil pressure is higher than the water pressure. That's where it could push through. I don't think it's a head gasket issue because we don't seem to be getting compression into the coolant. That's when I would lean towards, say, cracked head gasket, something like that. So we're going to try to get the oil cooler pulled off, and then we'll pressure test the oil cooler and see if we can find a leak. We may have to heat it up while pressure testing it to see. It's still a little warm from running it over here. Just went home and ate dinner. But that's what we're dealing with. Not great. And if you remember, I had this for sale in the auction. If you're asking yourself, I thought you sold that thing. I did have it in the auction. It didn't bring any money, so I bought it back, and a kid over the hill is interested in buying it if we fix it. So we're gonna fix it, and this is our Thanksgiving mission. So I have the bucket pinned up in the air. Don't worry, we're not sitting on hydraulics. Got to pull these couple bolts out of the top here so we can take the side panel off. Hopefully, we can do that with the loader arms up. I'm not sure that you can. I think the turbocharger also needs some love in this whole endeavor, so the hood itself here may need to come off too. Loader might have to be down. What happened? All right, picked her up with a forklift because the scrap didn't want to start. See if we can get that coolant drained. Coolant slash oil. All right, guys, up there. Let's see which size we need. Oh, too big. It's too big. I'm trying your 5/8 there. Probably 9/16. Yep.
Yep.
Too big again.
Too big. I take that one.
Ready? Oh my God.
Oh my God. That's just so many rabbits.
Look at that poor, delicious coolant. Oh, watch out. Look out.
Look out.
Thanks, Otis.
Otis is in the way.
I'm started. I'm started.
Hey, leave that here. I can eat it.
I need it.
Because we're going to shut that valve back off.
5 years later.
Yeah, 5 years. So I just went ahead and pulled the dipstick again quick. You can see this doesn't have coolant in it. It's not all milky white. Still seems like pretty nice, relatively clean engine oil. So that's why I really lean towards this oil cooler here being our issue. This one is for the transmission. We're lucky the engine one's up top here. I guess it's possible that the transmission cooler is the bad one. We ought to pull the transmission dipstick and give it a good look as well. I guess to me, part of it is how black that coolant is. I feel like that's engine oil. If it was transmission oil, I don't think it would be so black colored. Just to give her a glance, the transmission dipstick back here, it's just perfectly clean. Nothing to argue about there. So yeah, we're gonna go with transmission cooler, take it off and pressure test it. Hopefully we find an issue with it. If not, I don't know. In order to get this out, I think we're gonna have to take this back elbow going into the block. That'll give us a little bit of clearance. Obviously we'll have to take those bolts off, and then there's these 4 bolts that hold onto this front piece. We'll leave it go. The transmission cooler and the engine oil cooler both tie into this coolant pipe coming out of the block here. Then we have the 2 oil lines. This one goes back to the oil filters back here, and this one must go into the galley. I think, but I'm not 100% sure. I think you normally go through the filters and then the cooler and then feed the engine, which to me is backwards. I would think you'd cool it and then filter it, but for whatever reason, I don't think that's the way engines do it. I think they filter it hotter. Potentially higher viscosity is easier to filter, then cool it back down a little bit. I don't know. We'll check that in the book and see if we can make sure. Some of these bolts look like they are going to be a lot of fun to get to. We'll see how this all goes, like the one down here in particular. You know, if we're going to take those bolts out anyway, we wouldn't have to take this apart. We could just take those 3 and those 4 and the 2 oil lines and pull that whole unit out of there, I think. See, this is the original engine to this tractor. 53A 8084. This is a Caterpillar D333 engine. I haven't used these wrenches too much. Mountain wrenches, they're called. Torque test channel to blame on me buying them. But I like them, they just, I don't know. I haven't super found their spot, I guess you'd say. I like how long these wrenches are though. They give you a lot of leverage, which is nice. The other nice thing is you can see this side sticks out and that side doesn't, and then you can reverse it so you're not stuck with it one way. So a lot of times this little guy will fit down in places that a ratchet wrench won't work for in certain applications, which is nice. I don't know, they haven't been the most used thing in my toolbox by any means, but they're not real expensive either. Some of these are awful hard to get to. I'm actually using a crow's foot and giving her the old reach around on this one. What I have like a line style crow's foot. And then once I get down in there, of course, you're in Titan mode. I got a couple turns on it now. We're just using all the combinations tonight. That guy in there. Perfect. I got the 4 bolts out of these 2 oil lines. That one's still in, but I broke it loose. So just have that guy there and that one, and it should come out of there. And all the bolts are out. Just gonna tuck some absorbents in there. Oil line number 1. Oil line number 2. All right, so those 4 bolts are out, and those are out. I just noticed, I think this is supposed to be able to back up. If you look, there's a gap right here. I think this is O-ringed into this. Now, will that move? I have no idea, but I think this should back up into there with the intent that you put the cooler in, and then when you tighten those bolts up, it pulls that out, and there's probably an O-ring in here that goes into this piece. But what I'm thinking is let's tap on here. We got to get stuff starting to break free, but I think this flange is going to have to move just a little to get that out. Once we get it out, pull that flange out of there, clean everything up, and then it'll be good and free going back together. That's my thought anyhow. Oh, that's a good sign. If we get any verification on my theory that that wiggles. We're still getting coolant out there. Oh, you know what? That whole block needs drained. We only drained the radiator because of the way the water pump works. Let's move our bucket. There's something. There we go. Something moved. Trying to get this piece to move just a little bit. There we go. It's like a mini boiler. Coolant's going through here. Oil goes through there. We're thinking somewhere, somehow, there's a leak in one of those tubes or in the end. So I definitely should have slipped something in here to protect those oil lines sooner from getting dirt and crud in them. We're gonna have to pull them off, I think, and clean that out, because dirt definitely got down in there and I don't want to send that down to the bearings. This piece does seem to move. can see it wiggle there a little. We're gonna have to work to get it out of there, put a new O-ring on, I'm sure, and then it'll slip way back in there for us to put the new cooler or the old cooler back in and put that together. See if we can rock this baby. Ugh. A little bit. Little bit. We have moved it ever so slightly out. It's gonna be a mission. I'm gonna keep working at it, or maybe we'll make Puff help us tomorrow. Just like we thought. O-ring right there. Once we buff that out, have a new O-ring, putting it together won't be so bad. Well, the more I think about this, the less I think it's the oil cooler. We don't have oil on top of this bucket. And I think this is just soot in the water, and you can see, I mean, that's just essentially coolant, not the end of the world. Little bit there. The things that confuse me are why I didn't think this was getting combustion in there, which would have to be if it's soot. We're still going to pressure test this oil cooler, but it's probably fine, which is good, I guess, if we didn't spend the money to buy an oil cooler if we didn't need one. But if you look in the top tank of the rad, it sure seemed like oil to me. I mean, that sure looks like oil. Like, there's that. Well, I remember to bring the book down today. And the oil does go through the oil cooler, then to the filters, and then to the turbo, and to the head, and to the block galley, and everything down here. But I really feel like we don't have an oil cooler problem. I want to test it while it's out, but I think we're going to have to pull the head, so we're going to have a turkey day head pulling. I was just scraping these guys off with the old carbide scraper here. Give them a final little buffing here. The old Milwaukee pillar. Would you just look at it? Just need to scrape off the ends too, I suppose. I'll get these ready for our pressure test plates. Whipping up our test plates here quick. Who needs a mill when you have a lathe anyway? I'm just drilling this with a 7/16 drill bit for our 1/4-inch MPT tap, and then we'll just put an air fitting right into that. We do need to tap it from the other side because we surfaced this side, and the way I had the tool post, that's as far as I could go before the jaws hit the compound. That's good enough. This will fit inside of there anyway, so we'll just throw that in the vise, hand tap it from the back side. One more aluminum plate here. I'm going to throw this in and surface it so we have nice flat sealing surfaces. And then we just have to drill the 2 holes in this in the drill press for the bolts to go through on both of these plates. Where's your torch and chainsaw? I don't know. Where'd you put them? I didn't touch them. Old scrapper's on us again. Special sauce cutting fluid is 15W40 motor oil. For the sake of this test, I'm just going to put RTV on our machine plate. Tap that 1/4-inch NPT so that we can take our shop air end and thread it in there for pressurizing purposes. Righty. Plates on there. All right. And then we just have our blank off plate for that side. And we'll put that on there. So you can see there's tubes inside of this heat exchanger, and what we're trying to do is see if the oil side, which are these connections, can mix with the coolant side which are these connections. So we're gonna block off this one, put shop air pressure to this side, and then dunk it in a bucket of water. If any air bubbles are coming out anywhere on either end, we know that this oil cooler is bad and it's leaking internally. We'll let this gasket maker dry a minute. I don't want to put shop pressure to it just yet. The turbo needs to come off next anyway because it's kind of sounds like it's hitting the housing. You can hear ting, 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 ting at times. The turbo needs to come off. We'll tear it apart. I did get a new thrust and other bearings for the turbo. I'm hoping that's really all it needs. I think the head's probably coming off. I just pulled the hood off. But as you can see, the head kind of tucks back in there. The turbo has to come off so you have enough clearance to lift the head with this frame here for the loader. Nothing about this is like fun to work on. At some point here, I don't know if you're better off with the loader down, but then you have that linkage. It's gonna be kind of up there anyway. I guess we got the water pipe to come off, turbo to come off, all the injection lines on the other side, pull the valve cover, rocker, all that assembly. Then we get to all the head bolts. And I think if we set this loader down, we get in here with the forklift right over the side to pick that head. You can see the injection lines. The water pump, fortunately, does not appear to hit the head. It ties in at the block, and it's just that return coming out of the head back to the radiator. So to get this elbow and the turbo off, we're probably just gonna need to get in there with a torch and cut some bolts. As you can see, they're not looking too swell. Getting a little toasty in the belly pan there. And we got her. Fire watch. Have you guys ever seen a turbo with a third line on it besides the feed and the drain? I haven't. The book calls it a vent. I call it destroyed after I couldn't turn that without it twisting the whole thing. The only way you can even... The only thing I could even get to get on there is this line wrench style crow's foot. I could reach up in and get one turn, take this off, flip it over, get another turn, take this off, flip it over, get another little turn. Oh, it's such a pain. You can see you just can't, nothing is accessible here with the loader frame. If you put the effort into taking the entire loader frame off, which would be an undertaking, it'd be a lot easier to get in there. We need that out of the way. I think the drain line might have to come off according to the book, which I think it is just those couple of bolts. That's the drain right there, so that's easy enough to get to. Because the inlet piping stays, and you have to be able to pull the turbo forward off of that inlet pipe. So we still have the outlet air pipe to come off, that oil drain line, and I haven't finished that oil vent line. Get this air intake pipe. Impacts where possible. No. Stay. All right, the backside bolts are off. Get a little movement here. Not too bad. This is our oil supply line that feeds filtered cooled oil to the turbo. I torched these bolts, so we need to take a punch and a hammer and see if we can drive them through. And we got to slide it. We got to get the bolts out because we got to slide it this way out of the intake thing. But I think it's a similar deal with O-rings, like this outlet. We need to slide off of that because, as you can see, you can't really get there from here. And this is all loader frame, so like this is a cover, but you still have the loader frame here no matter what. So we do have to take the head off. The turbo has to be out of here so you have room to lift the head up. Kind of why we're doing all this. I feel like we're gonna take the head off, and the turbo we know had the ting 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 package, so it needs to come off. The head's probably gonna have to come off, and we're just in here doing it. Oh man, I didn't realize. Crap. That one started to go, and then we broke the manifold off. Ah, this is going downhill in a hurry, isn't it? We went a little too hard, bud. Best thing for your turbo. Start beating on it. Ideally, you could take this clamp off and take the cartridge out of the exhaust housing, but you can't because this will hit. This thing is just not a good time to work on. Can we destroy more stuff? Man, you just can't get there from here. There we go. There's some movement. She has launched off of that now. All right, so I was just hammering on the back of our hammerable big pry bar here. Works pretty well. Let's go up on top and see if we can hoist this thing out of there. A little Armstrong power. This thing is a workout there, man. I'll tell you what. Up, down, up, down. Sliding it out of there. Well, while we're about ready to jump off a cliff with the turbo, let's do what we've all been waiting for. Try out the oil cooler. So we're just gonna take straight shop pressure. Leaking a touch at the seal surface of this. Otherwise, that cooler's fine. All that was for naught. But hey, now we know we didn't waste a bunch of money on a new one at least. But unfortunately, I think that makes our suspicions and ChatGPT's suspicions that this is soot and not oil true, which means the head has to come off. And that's a whole nother can of worms. We gotta get the turbo out of the way, and honestly, I think the turbo coming out of the way is the hardest part of pulling that head off. Once we get that out of the way, we'll pull the valve cover, rocker assembly, buzz the head bolts out, and the injection line. She's ready to pull. But it's about time to go eat some turkey. We'll come back to this later. Kind of a better view of what we're trying to get off there on the back of this turbo. That little pipe in between that mount and the turbo itself, that would have an O-ring on each side. It looks like we've moved it slightly. There's just no good way to get there from here. We just need to torch this whole loader arm out of the way. There it is. There it is, folks. All about the prying. Not destroying that oil line. Whew. She's a big girl. And you can see my big boo-boo here. I was deleting that. The right guy with nickel rod might be able to weld that back on there. That is unfortunate though. At least we have the piece. Oh yeah. You can hear the collision happening there. We'll have to check our end play. You always have radial play in the turbo, but you don't want to have axial play this way. Honestly, the play in this turbo is not bad. It's just that it contacts the exhaust housing. Let me see if I can make it do it again. Like that. And it literally depends on how the tractor was sitting or parked or throttle if you'd hear it do that. So maybe we just want to try to get this exhaust housing off. It looks to me like there's a monstrous gap in here. See how big that gap is? So really, I think rainwater got down here and this is ultimately kind of shot. I just want to make it work and not contact and therefore destroy the turbine. So what I'm going to do is try to knock this off. We might just be able to like flapper wheel that, something, clean it up. I think we want to make it work and it'll be good enough to make its 5 pound of boost or whatever this turbo ever made. Alright. So now to get the rockers, it's just these bolts here. Must be 7/8 or 15/16. Those are also one of the head bolts. You can see head bolt, head bolt, head bolt, head bolt. Just wiggle these wires around and leave them be. We need to unhook all the injection lines from the injection pump. Should have steamed this thing off probably, but it's too late for that now. Because we're coming apart, well, it's all just going to get washed out anyhow. Grab a socket for that and some rubber gloves. Make sure we can bust these injection lines loose and they turn, hopefully. And the pipes aren't stuck. Awful rusty. I'm surprised for being underneath the hood. Yeah, that was my fear. Not good. There we go. Gotta make sure the nut turns on the line so we don't hurt the line. A little bit of blaster in there would probably help the cause. All right, the question is, will the Milwaukee 3/8 take these off? No problem. There's our rocker assembly. And you can see we're inside the head now. This is the 12 valve design, not a 24 valve design. Let you guys, in your smartness, do the math on that. Now the reason I got done the last time was for blaster, which I totally forgot. These are the glow plugs, go down into the pre-cups here for starting. They weren't working properly. I cut this wire, it was attached technically, but you can see we have some very not happy wires going on, and this one up here on number 1 looked like that. These could have pony engines still, so thankfully this one is a factory direct start unit. I'm going to spray some blaster in these, all of them, down here at the injection pump side too. We need to get all these lines totally out of here at some point before we pull the head, and then head bolts and whatever we need to do with this intake pipe bracket to get him to clear. And I think that's, you know, not to say there's nothing left to do, but relatively straightforward here. Keep on doing her. Alrighty guys, so we got the old head off of the 977, and somehow I lost all the footage of actually taking the head off. So we're gonna go back in time, take a look at this head, figure out why were we getting compression into the coolant, what is the issue, and you know, why are we doing all this work? Why did we pull the head? What are we looking for? So the first thing we checked when we got the head off is the head gasket. Head gasket did not show any signs of failure. It looked good. The deck surface looked good. There was no signs of compression going straight out the deck and into one of the water channels where those rubber gaskets are. None of that stuff looked like a problem. That's kind of be our most obvious if the head gasket was just blown out, say, and it would be a real bad compression leak. We didn't have it that bad. This thing rarely pushed water, only when I had it like real hot, working hard, that one time I noticed it pushing water that kind of led to all this. Other than that, never noticed it as a problem. So the first thing I looked at was the head gasket and the surface of the deck here, and it didn't have any obvious head gasket destruction or blowouts, but I did find this one pretty bad crack. Check out that crack coming right towards where the fire ring seats. Now it doesn't look terrible, but I think at temperature it might be bad enough just to get a little bit of compression out here into that head bolt zone. So now that we've determined this head's junk, let's cut it in half, you know, for science. All right, how are we gonna do? I ended up with these couple spacers to get it out of the way to have enough height in the bandsaw. Looks like our cooling lines have all about left the chat. I think we need to give some love to this thing. Still going. Ta-da! How cool is that? The old inside view of a D333 head. Oh my. She's in auto feed mode apparently. There you have it, folks. That intake manifold is actually gigantic. That's the runner into the valve. You can see where that runner keeps going. So that's the outside of the pre-combustion chamber in the water jacket there. So the deck of the block is only about that thick. Probably 3/8 to a half, depending on where you are. Look at all that sludge, crud buildup in there. I'm impressed by the air intake. I mean, that's a ton of air you're flowing in there. We brought a truck?
Yeah.
A very dirty truck.
Yeah. Don't
Oh my. I would give it a spraying off today, but I don't know. Tomorrow it's going to get covered in 2 seconds again. But, new old stock cat of my pillar heads. Let's check them out.
Let's check them up.
Check them out?
Yeah.
You ready to take our new heads out?
Yeah.
Why do we have two? Well, because they were a good deal.
Yeah.
We only need one, but
I'll put right there, Dada.
that was good cam replacement, Shaver.
Yeah.
Future cameraman, right here.
Yeah.
And maybe Star.
No,
Come on, let's go on the forklift. So I got these on eBay. You alright, buddy? They're new old stock Caterpillar heads. They got quite the Cosmoline package. I think they look nice. I just really hope it's the right head. As far as everything I can tell, it's the right head, but I'm not like 100% sure. So this is where the pre-combustion chamber goes that we could not get out. You can see it actually threads in down on the deck. And apparently these will crack. But I would think if that cracked there, you would see it like on the bottom. But the pre-combustion chamber could also crack mixing coolant with combustion pressure. So the pre-cup itself could be cracked in the old head. But we're gonna reuse our old valves. We already ground them. And we can get this thing turned up on its side and make sure that the seats are already cut. They should be. And we should just need to drop them in, give them a quick little lap, get them to set, put the rotators in, the valve springs and everything, put it back together. I'm happy seeing things like how clean all these counter boards are and everything. Like, this is nice. The more new parts like this you can acquire when you get a good deal on them on eBay, that's so much less cleaning for us if we're gonna reuse that old head. And these exhaust valves require a lot more cutting than the intake valves do, I've noticed. And that's all there is to it. Clean it up. And that's our last exhaust valve. Ready to roll. The service manual has all the dimensions that you need to maintain listed out well. You can see both the intake and exhaust valves are 30 degrees. One of the most important things we want to watch is called the margin, which is basically how thin we are from the end of the taper to the bottom of the valve here. And that is identified by J. And J is 94 thousandths. Another thing we got to watch is the diameter of the stem, because as this is going up and down, this is wearing in the guide. The guides wear, these wear. Now our new head comes with new guides, so we don't have to worry about that side, but we do need to look at where they want it to be 0.3715 to 0.3725. So let's check out some of these dimensions. 371, so technically that's a half thou under the spec, but it's gonna be okay. 372 are right there in the spec, and then the 0.094 down here for our margin, we are about 114, so probably grind these one more time, but I doubt this thing will get another 100, 200 hours on it in its life, and it'll be just fine. So here's an exhaust valve.
One there, guys, one there.
Tight, but goes. They're much tighter. You can tell how much wear there were in the old guides on that old head compared to this. I mean, you could like noticeably wiggle the valves around. And now they're good to go. Sweet! So part of me wondered, is this actually Caterpillar when I bought it? And I'm pretty sure it is. It's got this IFL, I'm not sure if that was the foundry where it was made or whatever, but then the Cat part number in the casting. These could be pony engines. This one was a factory direct start, but some of them were pony engines still. This has the exhaust pipe running through it, capped off at both ends, that would be your pony exhaust. And all these factory covers have actual Cat bolts on them. So I'd say if it was aftermarket, they would not have Caterpillar bolts. So I think everything is well as advertised. I don't think we're some sort of a counterfeit deal here by any means. And not blaming the guy I got it from. If that was the case, I think that stuff happens. Probably doesn't happen with antiques as much as like the 3406 stuff it does. Kim shows up to help put this head together.
Yep, and we don't have all of the parts.
We have all the parts to put it together, I think. We just don't have the parts to put it on. Santa is bringing us a head gasket. Maybe. So Kim just unbolted this cover off of the old wrinkly head here. Is it stuck on there nicely, I'm assuming?
It's pretty good.
We got to reuse that guy. And this thing is super gooey. I don't know if starting fluid or our best approach is to clean this stuff. But we're going to put the valves back in, and we need to put the new pre-combustion chambers in, and that should be most of it. So I couldn't order that gasket, but it did have a gasket. It's going to get RTV blue package. The old Cosmoline package proving hard to clean. If we had a little bit bigger parts washer, we could just put the whole thing in there, I think.
We had some of the old brake cleaner package.
Having to give the old debooger package to our valves, or to the valve guides. So these are our ground valves going into the new head, and they were getting a little bit stuck when they actually started into the guide here. That's a lot better. If we're putting oil on the valve stem, and then we have lapping compound for the bottom, we've already ground the valves, of course. And we have new seats. So the lapping compound is just helping us get that final seal package. So we take a little bit of this lapping compound and just put that right there on the valve seat. Close her in, and we take our handy dandy spinning tool. Okay, now it's not good. All right, so that's how we give the valve kind of a final lapped seat. At that point, we don't want to change which valve is in which spot. And you can see we have actually lapped in that outside surface. Perfect. And we'll get them all honed in. Trying out this trusty new valve spring compressor.
Just look at it.
Oh, yeah, you got plenty. I think you might have clamped her in too much.
Oh, really? Too much.
Too much. So Kim's just putting a little bit of grease on the valve keepers so they stay on there, especially since we're doing this sideways. Kim's basically a professional now.
Apart from the one that we weren't a professional on. Has it got it in there? Oh no, it's there.
We only forgot one rotator.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Let her rip. Perfect. And that is all of the valves in the new head. Next up, pre-combustion chambers.
Should we lay it down now?
This is the pre-combustion chamber. So the fuel injector lives down inside of this, and basically the air is coming up in here every time the cylinder comes up on compression stroke, and that makes a ton of turbulence, so that made a more complete burn. This is kind of like the start of the fire. This is the old style injection before they went to direct injection, where the injector is actually pushing straight into the cylinder. So these have like a sealing ring that seals down on the bottom, and then there's an O-ring up here, and there's the coolant is right around the edge of this. So that threads in right there, and I'm just kind of dry fitting this without the O-ring or the bottom seal. Actually, I'm not doing anything. Concerning. Are you the wrong one? No. That's the wrong chamber.
Oh no, really?
I'm pretty sure it's just like that's the threads. I think it's just going in the threads. So, yep, that is definitely the wrong one for this head. It needs to tighten into there, not just fall into there. Well, I guess we need to figure out what part number we need. Officer Lane, we brought in more backup.
We'll see what we can make happen, Jay.
One Big John and one Kim with another big pipe. Something's gonna break, and Big John's gonna wear it in his face, I think.
Possibly. Yeah.
That's a lot of force. So we're trying to get one of these pre-cups out and compare it, because we're still a little bit confused on the diameter of this thread and if I got the right pre-cup. But so it's either it needs like a helicoil thread insert, or this is the wrong pre-cup. But this is 5S1883, and from what I could tell, this is a D333A head, like it should be. The head gasket lines up, everything seems right, and I believe this is the right pre-cup, and it's just not happy, Bob.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
What are you doing in there, Trouble? Is that where you ride? So this is the wrong pre-cup that we ordered originally for this head. And that is the problem. It doesn't fit. So I thought maybe a helicoil was the answer, and this thing had been machined for some sort of thread repair, and as you can see, that doesn't really work. I had a coarser one, because this is 12 threads an inch, which is not a standard 3/4 thread. After looking at the parts book one more time and some help from my cousin looking at some things, this is the correct pre-cup. Only the last 200 977s had this head. And I think this is technically a D333B, which there's not many of. They're mostly A's and then C's. And this pre-cup is the only difference I can tell on an A to a B head. This one is a 7/8 thread instead of the 3/4 thread on the OG unit. And that, otherwise, they're the same pre-cup, same diameters up above. They're still different than a 3306 or a D333C. And this one actually works. Would you just look at it? Now, we're still waiting on the gaskets for these to come in from Cat, so we'll have them next week. We can actually install this, but it has been a marathon of waiting on parts to get this thing back together. It has been, basically we tore this apart right around Thanksgiving, and then I got the wrong parts, and then we had Christmas and New Year's just being a train wreck of UPS and deliveries, and we finally got these in today. It's Friday. I think the Cat parts will be in Monday or Tuesday. That we have the gasket that goes on the bottom, and it was a different O-ring in the parts book for the top. I'm not sure if it really is. I don't know why it would be, but those will be in as well. It sure looks the same to me. I bet the O-rings we have would work, but we need that other gasket. Getting closer. So tonight I'm going to flip the head over on the deck, and we'll see if we can get all these pre-combustion chambers installed. There's kind of a shimming process to get the glow plugs to line up properly, so we're going to go through that and see if we can make it happen. Keep that all clean so we don't scratch the deck surface. And oops. Perfect. So when we put these pre-cups in, of course we put an O-ring in that groove here, but there's different shim thicknesses basically to determine where does this tighten up and stop at so that your glow plug hole is oriented consistently throughout all 6. So I ordered a few different of the shims here from Cat. Get them out next. These are some of them, but there's 3 different thicknesses you kind of interchange. So what I'm going to do is play with that before I put the O-rings on, get them all hashed out of where they bottom out and make them even, take them back out and put the O-rings on. All right, so we have our 3 different shims here. So they are the gasket at the bottom of the pre-cup as well as just being different thicknesses. They must not have been super consistent on the threads here when they machined these threads and machined the head. Did I mess up again? I must have ordered these off of the old pre-cups. I have messed up every amount of parts ordering for this job. Another waiting game. I sure would have thought I'd have learned my lesson on the pre-cups. It's like I went back a page. I know I already bought those shims. It's like I bought them again. And I needed the one for the newer, bigger threads, like a 2S8960. Oh, how did I do this again? The struggle. Well, the good news is those parts are all returnable. I'll talk to Cat tomorrow about returning those. Order the correct ones. Hopefully they come in fast and we get this done. I'd love to put this head back on this coming weekend. Today is Tuesday, so we have a few days to get the rest of these parts all in and dialed up. Coming back. I like how you guys get to hit the fast forward button. I sure wish I could hit the fast forward button on this project. When we start on Thanksgiving and it's now January. And that's how these projects go. Well, fortunately, Caterpillar is pretty quick, and we already received our new shims. Let's see if they're the right ones. Definitely look a little bigger. Ah, perfect. So we've already cleaned up the surface where these things live. Probably are going to want a little bit of grease just to get that to stick to that while we put it on. So we'll see where that thickness puts us, and we'll use that as a baseline to see kind of where these tighten up. So that's where the glow plug is. So you can see we tightened up with the glow plug off to the right. I don't know. Let's look at the other head. Oh my. Princesses. And that it's upside down. The book is happy with you anywhere kind of between those two bolt holes, which that doesn't seem like a big deal. We might want slightly thicker on that one. And we'll try to work our way down the line and see where they tighten up. And then we'll take them back out, put the O-rings on, and torque them. So we've played the reshim game. I wish I would have gotten 6 of the thickest, but you know, I thought 4, 4, and 4 would do it. And so you play this game where you get the glow plugs to all be between these two head bolts. And we got that. It just seems kind of odd that basically they left the machining tolerances of the thread to that flat kind of loose and then just say, oh, you got to play, you know, ring around rosy on your gaskets to get that shimmed where the glow plugs are up here where they want them. So no big deal, they're in there. We're going to pull them back out, put the O-ring on, put some lube on that O-ring, and then put them back in and torque them to 150 foot-pounds. I put some tire mounting compound on that O-ring, but it's still pretty snug. I guess that's a good thing. This has to seal the coolant in that area of the head, both top and bottom. The O-ring sealing the top and that gasket seals the bottom. Go ahead and throw 150 foot-pounds on it. Alrighty. And that's our pre-cup. Always thought that was cool how Cat actually puts the part number on the O-ring in case you get them all mixed up. We're just taking a little bit of tire mounting compound, which used to be more of a jelly, now turned into much more of a liquid, but still do its job. You just got to be careful. Certain oils and whatnot on certain O-rings will make them swell, especially when they're a cooling system facing O-ring like this. So just to be safe, that's why I'm not using oil on them. So as you put this in, that gasket's still down there, so. So you kind of got to hold this the right angle and turn it as you get that O-ring started down in there. And the thread's properly aligned. There we go. There she is. Torque her up and keep on going. And that's the game. So this is the whole assembly that holds your fuel injector down into the pre-cup, but it's just this nut, this little body, and then the nozzle. So when you want to put new injectors in, of course, you just unscrew this out, just finger tight because it's held down in there. And then you put your brand new nozzle on there. Drop that back down in the pre-cup. You torque that nut down on top of it, and now you have a brand new set of injectors with a nice new spray pattern. You don't have to spend a ton of money, and you just kind of throw away that old injector nozzle. So I think that was a cool idea they had back then. I love finding the new old stock on eBay. So because we couldn't get everything apart on that old head because it was in such bad shape, I was able to buy some of these nuts, new old stock. So they give you this new O-ring that goes around here, and its main purpose is to seal the rainwater from getting down inside your pre-combustion chamber around the injector. So that goes like that. And then that pushes on that, and then you have this other seal, and then you have this other little O-ring seal, and then when you tighten the injection line up, that seals against that. And again, that's all just to keep water out, you know, as best it can. Obviously, it got in there on the other one. But you'll have that in, you know, 50 years time, 60 years time. So we have this little injection assembly. It just drops down in there. Those splines keep it from spinning. You put that on there. Torque that down, that O-ring just seals the top from rain. And they torque to 110 foot-pounds. Ta-da! And then we put that seal on, and I have these little caps. May or may not work at all for these. Keep the dirt out of everything. I don't think we're going to have enough of the short ones. of a couple. We tried. Got this cover bolted on there, and that's going to wrap us up for tonight. I forgot to ever order studs for the exhaust manifold, so I just dialed some of them up on McMaster. It's Thursday night, so I set them for Saturday delivery. I really would like to mostly button this thing up this weekend. We'll see if we can accomplish that. I should have that heat shield for the turbinator tomorrow. Like always, I make ambitious plans, and something will throw a wrench in it, and we won't get anywhere near it this weekend, but we'll tell ourselves we can. Tonight we have a couple missions. We need to get this manifold all bolted up. We got some studs in, and we need to make our lifting device. So we use these for tie down rings at work. And I was originally thinking just kind of slap it on there like that and drill a couple holes, and we'll bolt on here where the compression release rod would be. But the factory lifting holes are here and on the far side. So if you look, they're kind of way over here. So I'm thinking I may try to like come up and over some sort of contraption like that. Maybe we'll shorten a couple of these just so we have some extra flat, because this is all I brought. And this will ultimately end up over here. I think that's kind of where the balance point should be. And we'll go from there. We lay that there. We're gonna nip this out for that valve spring, that corner off there. And then we can bolt it down there. Do it like that. Switch over from old solder mode to cutting mode again on the torch. And we got our marks. Hopefully we can cut it right out good enough. Touch it up with the grinder and call it good. There she is. Old torch cut and drilled the bottom part. Let's go see how she lines up. How did we do? Would you look at that? I think with a little longer bolts would work, but I'm just happy they went. So those two are in. Now, we want to come up like that. I think that's what we'll do. And we'll cut the back of this one off and brace from here up this way, because that's going to try to kind of rip that off there. We'll give it some strength, and I think we'll be good. This time I clamped this little piece of angle on to be a guide. Yes, this is angle, but it's not quite as big as what we're getting with this 2-inch flat, so we're not going to use it. It's also stainless, not that we can't weld that to steel. So now we're going to start welding all this stuff together, and step one, we'll tack that guy, but I'd like to set us up for some open butt welds like that. Get really good penetration welding it like that, and we can weld the inside and the outside. So I'm going to tack that like that to step it over, and then the same thing with this one to step it down. I think we want to be all the way over, kind of hanging off the edge. So we'll get her tacked up. Step one. The old Lincoln Miller combo does just Jim Dandy. We got the custom D333 Head Picker 9000. Raring to go. Out of that little support on the back. Shouldn't go anywhere now. I think that head is somewhere 600 or 700 pounds plus the exhaust manifold, so it's not the lightest thing, and we are lifting it, so we don't want something bad to happen.
And the green one?
Yep, those two right there. Yeah, make them nice and even as you go.
I did it!
Good job, buddy.
What do you do?
Yeah, we got 3 more, or 2 more. We already put the end one on, huh? 2 more gaskets.
Yeah.
Good job, mister. High five.
Yeah.
Whew.
Mommy gonna be so proud.
Of course Mama's gonna be so proud. It's called the exhaust manifold.
Dada.
This goes like this. Sits in there. Like that.
Dada, what will you not?
And now we need the nuts and the washers on the end. And if you notice those are kind of long, we'll cut them after we get the nuts on.
Where they coming from?
So they don't hit the fuel and filters and other things up there.
What do we use to turn it?
The grinder. What are we doing right now?
On the grocery store. Putting the nut on.
We're putting the exhaust manifold on the head, huh? And that's why we're putting these nuts on. So because I ordered these studs a little long, you can see how much is sticking out. We got everything as far into the head as we could, all tightened up. Now we're just gonna chop them off. Watch out, Buster, you don't have your safety glasses. Been cleaning our little hearts out here on the block, and it's taken a fair bit of effort. I'm surprised. Luckily, I caught that 2 of those head bolt holes in the back of the block were just filled with crud. I got that all cleaned out between using the vacuum here and an air gun. Just trying not to get dirt everywhere, but clean that out, wire wheel that deck one more time. At this point, I think we're ready for a final wipe down and putting the head gasket and water seal O-rings in. So the reason I was checking into the head bolt holes was some of them were filled with oil, and I wanted to get them sucked out with the shop vac, because if you just run the head bolt down in there full of a liquid, you can actually blow the bottom of that hole out in the block, because you're essentially being like a hydro lock. The bolt is acting like a cylinder and pressurizing all that oil in there. So be careful of that. You can definitely destroy things. Okay. We're gonna call this our final clean. Things blown out back there. Gonna give it one wipe down, and let's put the head gasket and the other rubber gaskets on. This is how to check the protrusion. So if we put this on the deck, and that's 0, we're essentially flat on the deck right here. We'll 0 our indicator. So now, what we're looking for is how much higher this step in the liner is than the block, which I was finding right around 2 to 3 thou. So they're all right in that 2,000 zone. More than anything, they're even, and I think that's what matters more than anything. So this has to stick up a little because the head gasket has what's called a fire ring, and that's what's sealing all your combustion pressure into the cylinder, is that fire ring, which sits outside of this step, and it gets smushed right here on the top of the sleeve or liner to the head. So the deck of the block is not actually sealing the compression, it's the liner to the head. So as time goes on, that liner can kind of fret up and down with a whole lot of hours, and it'll wear the counterbore of the block, and those liners will sink, and that can cause a head gasket failure. So you check that to make sure that you don't have to pull up a sleeve, put new O-rings on, re-shim it properly, or machine the block is what happens. Later Cat engines, they went to what's called a spacer plate design, where that top deck is actually like a 1/4 inch thick plate that goes outside of the sleeve, and then the top of the block is that next step in, so there's not that big stress riser of the inside of the counterbore. A cool idea. They still wear, the repair is still to machine it and put a sleeve into the top of the deck, so I don't think anything was really gained, but that was the concept. All right, Big John put our little tires together here last week. We got the 2 little ones in from Cat. These are for the oil, and they go on these ones. I'm gonna stick them on, and then we'll put all these in the top of the block. These guys just set in the block like that, and then when the head comes on, it goes up into a counterbore. And the head, these 2 little ones are the oil, which are there and there. Obviously, when you come down with the head, you have to be very careful not to mess this up. We got our new head gasket here from Caterpillar. Kinda neat how they package that. That cardboard out. You can see they still kind of have a rubber there where it has to seal around the push rods. That's just sealing oil. This is, of course, the fire ring sealing the compression in. And then otherwise, all these holes are just big to kind of miss those O-rings for the coolant and the oil. Here's our head gasket. We're ready for the head. Is this an improved lifting device? Absolutely not. We got the bottom of the deck all cleaned off. She's ready to go back on. See, this thing's hanging fairly well, leaning a little bit that way, but we're gonna make it work. We shouldn't have offset that lifting line. These are the factory ones are here and kind of opposite. We're straight there, so that's why I thought it would work. Oh well. Not just close, close enough. I need to find a forklift driver. Looks like we need to go a little bit more tilty tilt forward to get to the center line, of the tractor there. I just slapped that ratchet strap up there to make it crookedy. Let's do a little more forklifting. So you can see now why you can't pick this thing. Like the book wanted you to pick it from this lifting point and another one on that side and another one down on that side, but you can't because it won't fit under there. So that's why I thought this lifting device would be a lot easier. Now, if we could just raise it down and then side shift it backwards, really kind of got her made. I think that bungee is just the extra hand we needed. Raise it down. Just slipping right down in there. If only we had a crane. Well, we are not too far away from success here. We got to give everything a final check if it's clean down there on the head gasket. We're just about ready to lower it right down. You could see though, I mean, that's how much we're underneath all that loader frame. This thing is not fun to work on. So if you guys remember, we had to torch a couple of the head bolts. I was just thinking these are the perfect alignment studs to drop this on. And we have help.
Why are you so low?
What?
thinking I didn't push it near that far before.
All right, Stump. All right, so I preloaded that one head stud in that's kind of underneath the flange on the exhaust manifold, and I forgot about that, so I had to lift that up to get it to move over. Just trying to get one last look that all the ferrules are vertical and where they need to be. I really like having those alignment pins. I think that helps the cost quite a bit. All right, set her down, I guess, Jimmy. Okay, go ahead.
Sitting down? I don't think I have any weight.
I don't think so. It's sitting on those dowels or something. Why do you not want to sit down? Are these dowels different sizes? Like, there's no way sitting like that on the dowel and neither side is dropping. Oh, I see the problem. With our manifold washers. I'm gonna get them out of the way right now. Closer. Now we drew her down with a couple bolts. Wasn't my favorite thing to do, but it's on there now. Pull our lifting device off and get her bolted in. Right, Dodge? All right, drop all of our push rods back down in there. Just giving them a quick little wipe down. Nothing too major. Them all drop back in their homes. And then we'll put the rockers back. Give them a little shot of oil. Oops. Oh boy.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
I gotta sit. Very up, Leo.
Get you up there? All right, you got it.
I'm so high up, man.
You're so tall. All right, we got some new head bolts and some new head bolt washers.
No, that's it right there.
That's a light,
I need that light bulb.
so we can see in the dark. These are our handy dandy super duty washers from Caterpillar.
These super teeny waters here. Now where do we put these?
Put one on the boat.
Okay.
Good job.
Ta-da. What the number one?
Let's get another one.
Yeah.
So we got some oil we're putting underneath the heads of the bolts because the torques are wet torques for these to help them spin in there better. And then we also need to lube the treads. We did verify that the threads in the block were good and clean. I actually duct taped on a little tube to the shop vac and had to suck some oil out of some of the holes so that we don't have anything in the way when we go to screw these in. Thanks, buddy.
Put some oil on that.
You want to put some oil on it?
Yeah.
Squeeze. Perfect. A little right here under the head.
Yeah.
That's what pumps it. Whoa, yep. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that.
Perfect, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. I don't want me and I don't. That.
Perfect.
Pop.
Here, next.
I had oily hand.
Next.
That one?
Yeah, any of them, they all need it.
On the bill. There we go.
Good job.
There we go.
So this air intake, we got to spin that back down. I think it uses those two bolt holes, but I'm not 100% sure. So now that the head's in there, our last step on installing the head is to torque-sun it. They have you go 105 foot-pound throughout their pattern, where you start in the center, kind of spiral your way out through the center bolts. So they have you start here in the middle, work your way down through all the center bolts, which are these guys here. Then come and work your way backwards on the outside again, start at the center and more or less spiral out. And I think the idea of that is you're pushing the center of the head down, kind of like putting on a sticker. You don't want the air trap, but you're actually bending that head down slightly, pulling it down in the center, and then kind of like working your way out. So we did 105 foot-pounds, then 160 foot-pounds. Interestingly, the book gives you two specs. It says if it has an X, it's a hardened bolt. And obviously all the new bolts we put in are hardened, but the bolts that it had were also hardened, so they get the full 160 foot-pound. If they're the older variety, where they're not hardened, I think it said like 130 foot-pound or 120 maybe. It's not as much as these ones get. So the only thing left now is to start over, come right back here into the middle, and spiral out with the 160 foot-pounds one last time. Put my extension back in. See, that one's taking a little more. Now that its friends around that have been torqued, we're just gonna do them all. That's still 160. Took a little bit. Took a little bit. And so on. And we'll retorque them all to 160. To get this one under the manifold, I end up having to loosen the manifold up so that we could get on that well enough. And this other extension is a little bit thinner. This helps reach around it. We're gonna jump back on the other side. Just ran all our valve lashes, got everything set there. Cleaned up the top tank on the radiator for the coolant pipe here. So we have a new thermostat that'll drop in to the head there, and then that goes on. I think next I want to put all the injection lines on and then the turbinator, and then we'll do that. If you notice, I put those little caps there where the injection lines hook onto, just to keep dirt from getting down into the injectors while they're kind of vulnerable like this. So those guys go like that. Okay. I'm not going to tighten these up fully yet because we're going to have to bleed the system. We'll just put them on there snug. You know what? The glow plugs are going to need to go in there at some point. Maybe we got to do the glow plugs right now. Might be easier to get on them. So those are our shiny new glow plugs. And they go into the pre-combustion chamber. So on these IDI engines, or indirect injection with the pre-cups, they had glow plugs. Once they went to direct injected on the later 3306s, then you don't have glow plugs anymore. And you only had glow plugs on these when they were direct start. If they had the pony engine, they wouldn't have glow plugs either. All of our fuel lines are on. Drop the new thermostat in there. So the purpose of the thermostat is just to control the temperature of the engine. That opens and closes with coolant temps so that your engine is maintained at that, 180 degrees or so before it opens and fully lets flow out to the radiator to cool it down. You don't want to let the engine run as cold as possible. That's why you need a regulator or thermostat in there. So we got our new aftermarket water temp gauge here. Not real impressed. You can see how that dial looks, but hey, is what it is. At least we could get something. And it's in Celsius. This is bald eagle country. Pulled this whole fiberglass cover off is how you get in here, it turns out. Wasn't quite sure at first. Really not a bad way. We did this. Just pull that through there for now and then feed it back down that hole. So you can see back here behind the dash. Just tighten this up. Not very tight, of course. Snug that gauge up. Probably gonna be plenty. And there we have our water temp. Beautiful. I'm impressed, like all these wires and everything, they're holding their own for this many years. So the next thing we need to attack is Mr. Turbinator. And sometimes it hits the housing. So we're gonna take this turbo apart and see if we can find what's hitting.
I'll tell you what, Kenny down.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
All right, shut her down, buddy. This actually still had the factory wire on it. We were still under warranty, apparently. I don't know how impossible this is or isn't going to be to take off. Oh. That does not look real promising. I kind of wonder if we leave well enough alone at this point. You can hear the issue there of the grinding. I'm just kind of spinning it here with my hand. But on the exhaust side, the wheel is coming down low enough to hit the housing, it sounds like. I'm just a little afraid if we chisel this apart, A, that it will come apart at all, and how impossible to get it all back together.
So would you possibly need more shims inside there, or what's the...
It's probably like the thrust bearing is worn out, which I do have a new thrust bearing, but I don't have the journal bearings. I mean, you could make a shim, I guess, and shim the housing back. You don't normally want / need to do that. Big John says we gotta take this apart and do it right. I'm a little bit afeared. So I'm gonna hold this up. We're gonna take this here brass hammer and just beat the wang out of this housing and try to get it off. And see what happens. Ready? Oh, that was way easier than I expected it to be. All right, so where is it contacting? So this is like the whole, I don't know what you call it, nozzle ring, I guess that is. It's kind of like having a variable vane turbo. A variable vane turbo changes the pitch of those blades. This one you can just change out the whole ring. But, where were you hitting? The wheel and everything looks really good, actually. Oh, I think it's the backing plate. I can see where. I almost wonder, is it rush jacking out here that was holding the housing out? So then it wasn't clamping this guy in. You know what I mean?
Rubbing on the backside of the...
Yeah. Still hitting it. That's the sound we were hearing right there. And you can see there's like a chunk that has decided to delete itself. Oh, that's cracked. And the problem is to take that off means we have to take the compressor wheel off. This shaft and this wheel are essentially welded together. Usually these are Inconel, something that'll handle a super high temp, and they friction weld that to the shaft. But something wrong. This turbo's in decent shape. That's our compressor wheel, of course. This is the intake side of the turbo. So to take this off, we'll have to hold this in the vise. We'll also try to make a mark here in case we try to go back together with all this same parts to try to keep it as balanced as we can. But it will probably have to be balanced upon reassembly. Right over the end of the shaft, see? About 4th thou. Somewhere in there, 3 to 4 thou of end play. That seems like quite a bit of thrust. Let's see what the book says. The old Turbski Schweitzer 4B. And they're calling end clearance 4 to 6. Is that? So it's kind of interesting. They actually have you building all these different fixtures that we haven't been, and they give you the dimensions to do that. This one was all back here. These are all the dimensions for that fixture plate. They even have you go as far as this little supporting screw where you can buy the knob from Caterpillar and braze it to a piece of all thread that you've turned down to fit inside of said knob. And then you've created this after they had you build this whole fixture for it. I think that's pretty wild. I wonder how many people actually did that back in the day. Because we're probably not. There it is. You got her, cuz. The thrust should be contained behind that, dude. Yeah, that is a shim washer right there. And there is the shaft. And that's the piston ring that seals the oil. The journals and everything look pretty happy. Yeah, quite a bit of contact has been happening on the back of that wheel. Whoops. That would be the issue. Need that.
So even though it's retained by a snap ring, it'd still be captured by that one plate, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I bet the snap ring is just to hold it for assembly purposes. Guessing. 'Cause I think it gets mashed in there pretty good. Got the backing plate off, and you can see it is not feeling so well. That's all cracked out of there and wiggling, and I did find it looks like you can buy this on eBay. So one way or another, I think I'm going to try to get a hold of one of these and just put it back together as is, and hope that it's good enough to last a while longer at a not everyday pace. All right, tonight's mission. How far can we make it on the old Turbo Encabulator 9000? If you guys remember, we took this heat shield off. It kind of lived right in here, and as you can see, it is rather destroyed. Fortunately, though, eBay came through once again. This cool new old stock box with a much fresher heat shield. So it lives on there like that. We're going to give all this some thorough cleaning, and I hope there's enough integrity left on this to actually clamp back together and locate properly. I am a little bit concerned. I'm going to do some cleaning up, and we'll see where we are. I'm going to pull this snap ring out. These are the extra large snap ring pliers, and I do like that they actually hold themselves together like that. Then to release it, you can just let it off. I think to take this bearing housing apart, you got to put a couple bolts in here to pop her. Come on. Come on, girl. That's just a spacer piece inside of there, and then the piston seal that's sealing the oil in would be inside of that. We're not going to take that apart. So then we have the thrust bearing lives in here with a couple other washers. So we're going to take that plate off next to get us in where it is. That is the actual thrust bearing. So these washers are getting crushed on the shaft and then spinning on this. This spacer, the spacer in the middle is what's basically setting the clearance. So this right here, that's what actually sets your thrust, is whatever that wiggle is. See how there's some wiggle there? So I have a new one of these thrust bearings. Let's see what it does. So some cool new old stock parts again. That's our new thrust. We'll keep this all in the same orientation that it was and pre-lube this guy. We'll see if it's any tighter. Got this transferred over. I'm not sure that it's much different than it was, but hey, out with the old in with the new makes us feel better. So this is your actual journal bearing that the turbo is riding on, but it's not really touching it. There's pressurized oil everywhere, and as that shaft's spinning, it just sits up on a film of oil between the shaft and this bearing here. That's why oil pressure is so very important to turbos living. So that guy lives down in there, and that's what's keeping the shaft centered from moving like this. The thrust bearing that was out here is what keeps it moving from left to right. And the thrust gets affected by pressure. Because say as your drive pressure on the exhaust side is pushing up more than the compressed air is pushing back down for your intake side, that's where you have that imbalance and it's pushing on the turbo shaft left or right. All right, so I pre-oiled this thrust. I'm gonna set it down in there. And then we have the old cover plate package. All right, putting a little oil in there to lubricate that seal, that O-ring. Got this guy all cleaned back up. And we'll just drop it in. And put our snap ring back. There we go. All right, we're gonna clean that up a little more, but does sit there a lot happier now. We'll see if the exhaust housing can actually hold that tightly in there like it should. I guess that's a good thing that this is kind of eroded away. That will actually sit tighter against it at that point. That might be what broke it, I guess, is this being gone, but we'll see. Much better. That on there. And then we have the snap ring over this very crusty center section. We got a big hide and seek game going back here with Shaver and Pappy Dave. I think it's in there. I don't know. I think he might have gone home. One place we definitely messed up was not marking the rotation of each of these pieces. Should have done that. So now we're gonna have to maybe move things around once we're installed on the engine to figure this out exactly how this gets clocked. I'm trying to use the rust to help us. I didn't take everything off. So we got our volute package drop down in there. We know this is down and the drain is down relatively, so it's on there in some orientation. So we got this mocked up once without the shaft. I just want to see is that heat shield staying tight, and it's not. I can still wiggle it. Doesn't seem right to me that that's not held down by the housing. I guess if we pull that housing off and install the shaft and everything, we'll find out if it touches. Shoot some oil down in there. This poor abomination of a turbo teardown. This is definitely not a how to do this. It's probably a how not to do this. Go over to Area Diesel if you want to see it done properly. Still don't like how that thing, it's like that can come up into the wheel. But we don't know right now exactly how well that ring will hold it down. This whole rotating assembly should be balanced too. We don't have access to a balancer now, so we're not doing that. Continuing on how not to assemble a turbo. One of the biggest mistakes we made this whole turbo situation was we didn't mark how things were clocked. So I kind of put this together, taking our best guess at that, and obviously this is down and the drain's down. But once we have this sitting on the manifold, we're probably going to have to rotate that a little, and this is, again, a guesstimate of how it kind of shoots up. So I don't know for sure if that's how it needs to be. We'll get this down there. Well, first we got to put this in, and then the intake side has to slip over those O-rings on the intake pipe. So we'll put a little tire mounting compound to help that slide easier. Get that on, and then try to get this started. We'll see how close we make it all, but probably both of these clamps are going to have to get loosened to adjust the center section versus the exhaust, and then the compressor cover versus the center section. Again, we don't use oil on certain O-rings because we're not sure if they're like an EPDM O-ring, they can swell. So the tire mounting compound is kind of your safe bet on that. We're sitting on that drain line. You can slide on there a little bit more. All right, so the turbo is kind of close-ish, but we need to still slide on there more. Kind of looks like that coupling here started coming out. I don't know, I can't believe how rigid all that is. I mean, that's crazy to me how they did this mount. Like the head bolts are holding down that other thing. Why is everything a fight? This whole project has been a fight. Mom's getting us more donuts?
Yeah.
Come on, hit that turbo in there.
Okay. Fuck.
Oh.
I'm done. Locked.
Oh, it's still not lining up, Shave. I think we're gonna have to machine some off. This exhaust manifold must be different than the old one. We can measure it, I guess. Unless the turbo is not all the way together, which I doubt.
I can hammer that right on there.
Hammer it right on there?
Yeah, and put that now.
Well, one way or another, it's going on. All right, so obviously we took that whole outside thing off. That last O-ring is gonna not have much support. But unfortunately, it is what it is. Let's see if this works. Let's see, we can get that turned just about where it needs to be now. I think that'll do it. We definitely need to do some rolling around here of the center section to get that drain and everything to line up properly. So the drain line's on now. We're getting ready to hook up the pressure line to the turbo. I'm just gonna give it a good shot of pre-lube motor oil here. Make sure the bearings have some sauce. Alrighty, she's got oil now. Last thing to adjust and mess with would be our compressor side, which is this pipe has to align with the intake there. I don't know why the glow plugs weren't working properly. Doing a little glow plug rewiring. So this guy is like a little bus bar, if you will, for the power coming to all of the different glow plugs. And as you can see, this one has seen better days. But fortunately, the aftermarket world still has you supported on that kind of stuff too. So without further ado, let's throw some water in it, see if we can get this girl bled and fire back up. And nothing explodes. Our water temp gauge here is leaking something fierce. I think it's actually the adapter. Another good reason to test fill with water first. Oh, well, let's continue our inspection. Everything looks okay on that upper pipe. But the head gasket. Good back here so far. All good signs. Water's not pouring out of the head gasket. It's good back there as well. All right, see if we can start her up. This might take a little bit of effort to get the fuel bled. I'm just gonna try cranking it. We may need to crack some injector lines. I'll grab the 3/4 wrench. Get a little fuel now. We're gonna get the easy route and hit it with Cosby sauce. Got a little air in it yet. Well, it's not smoothing out. That sounds better. Take her on outside. We're gonna get it good and hot. Let this dawn, water and everything mix around. Flush it out, do it again, flush it out, do it again, get her good and cleaned out. Then we'll put some antifreeze in. doing all right yet. Do you think we have any prayer of starting you? I don't think she's doing it without any ether help, but we'll try. Battery said nope. I can't believe how hard this pile of dirt is. I mean, it hasn't been cold for that long. To make up for the little bit of water in the system yet, I have some concentrate, the mix, 50-50 with water. We'll put that in, and then we'll put all pre-mixed antifreeze in. I buy the pre-mix. It obviously costs you slightly more per gallon, but you don't have to go buy distilled water and deal with that. So, convenience, I guess. All right, we're gonna raise it down, put the hoods back on. I think the safety is best when you stand under the bucket to do it. Dig it any later. What do you guys think? 45 degrees out for freedom? I like the 45 degrees of freedom look myself. Beautiful. Handy. Now that side panel drops in there. You'll see a lot of machines without these. Fortunately, both of our 977s still have them. get her out of here. I checked the old battery charger on her. What do you guys think? Any more luck this time? Oh, oh, she still sounds mad. More of it. I really need to put a block heater on you. The good stuff. Wow. All right, we put a little jump and carry on the other side now too. Give the charger another minute. John Deere cold start. I don't know what that is, but it's mad. I think it's air related. Too cold! Everything's frozen, airlines are frozen. Basically, it's not able to push air to the dryer, to the tanks. So it's going over, it's like emergency relief up at the compressor. We'll get that line off and pour some alcohol in it, or what? Maybe it's taking it now. Nope. Not taking it now. Air's making it there. Not there. There it comes back to the dryer here. Not sure if it's the dryer itself that's frozen up. This is supposed to be a heater. I don't know if it works or not. And an old school can of the good stuff. Let's try her out. To scare it. We still might want to put it in there. Just take that hose off and drop it right in. I bet all the valves are frozen in the truck and trailer. Since these brakes are always such a pain, I just got everything unhooked. I'm gonna hook up to the Scrappybird and take it. I'm also a little afraid of running that 977 with ice and everything else up over the steel ramp and coming over and falling off, so let's not do that. that was gonna be the issue. Felt like the brakes are releasing at least. Man. Well, those are very frozen to the ground, so we're gonna run them over. There we go. Everything turning? I think everything's turning. Sweet! Come along with me. She's all tied down. Let's take her to her new home. Bye-bye, 977. Chug-a-lug, chug-a-lug. Not the easiest place to get to, but not the worst either. I should say, I think I know where we're going. I didn't really look at the address. Go up here, turn left. And that's what we're gonna do. And we're there. We're just gonna load her slap out in the street. What do you think?
Love it.
Build a house with her.
Do something.
I think I'd rather be on that dozer.
Yeah. For sure.
So there is no, I looked for the canopy, it must have got scrapped, unfortunately. I checked today. I was like, we were cleaning up a bunch this summer. I was like, I don't think that made the cut.
That's all right.
When I started looking around.
Easy up it is.
Yeah. And then you'll see the dump is backwards of what you think, but it works while you're going up and dumping with both. Is why Cat did that. And then you have the safety you got to take off there, and then you can put it in gear. And then yeah, that's just your steering is left track, right track, and then that's just the brake mode. And then that's the throttle forward back. All there is to it.
Pretty simple, huh?
Yeah. I'd say, oh yeah, you just don't have too much ice. I was like, you don't want to go for a ride right off the bat. It's like Big Dad says, that'll wash off with tonight's snowfall. The benefits of winter. Very few benefits of winter. Thank you, sir.
All right, buddy. We'll see you.
Good luck with it. Good luck with your house.
Have fun.
Yeah.
We'll see you too.
Alrighty. Alrighty. She is delivered, guys and girls. All right, guys, well, you can see we dropped this machine off, got it all taken care of. It's off to its new home. Sean was able to start it up when it was super cold the next day, but he said oil was leaking on the right side of the machine. Fortunately, it's not far from here, so our warranty, we'll be able to go help him out. No big deal. That was part of we gave it some testing, but not a ton. I figured, hey, if anything goes terribly wrong, it's not far to go over there and help it or bring it back here, worst case scenario. I did want to get it over there to him. He was all anxious to get it. So I was happy he still wanted to buy it. As you can see, this project turned into an ordeal. I thought it was just an oil cooler, genuinely thought that was the issue. As you can see, the coolant was not mixed with oil, it was mixed with soot. It would have been like a white milky color. I should have realized that sooner as soon as we started draining the coolant, but you live and you learn. It wasn't the oil cooler, it was a cracked head. So we put a brand new head on it, got it all back together, and it seems to be running well. Let's see how it does going forward. He's gonna give it a pretty good workout. Hopefully it all stays glued together. Thank you guys for following along with this marathon of a video. I'm Sam with Scrappy Industries. Thanks for watching. What are you doing, goofball? What do you want to do, mister?
I got Chio's out.
You want to go to Chino's house? What do you want to do there?
Play train.
Play trains.
Yeah.
Let's go play trains.
No, let's go.